big win for Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland, as Clovis was saying there. Does that make Scottish independence that bit more likely?
I think it does make it a little bit more likely. There's absolutely no doubt that Nicola Sturgeon will press for an independence referendum. Now, the question is whether Westminster, in the form of this new Boris Johnson government, will give the go-ahead for a referendum in Scotland. And up until this point, he's been saying that he won't. But it's a difficult calculation, I think, for Boris Johnson to make, because one of the things that is driving nationalism in Scotland is the fact that in successive elections, now over decades, Scotland has voted in an opposite direction to England in the elections, so that the Scottish voice is not being heard at Westminster. If, yet again, Scotland is denied, when Scotland has made it clear that it wanted to leave the EU, that there isn't going to be a response, an opportunity for Scotland to have its voice heard on the question of independence, many in Scotland who have been hovering on the dividing line between yes and no on independence may well say, well, actually, Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP are right on this. Westminster is never going to let us have our say, and nationalism as a consequence could grow in Scotland. So that although he may postpone a vote on independence now, further down the road, he may actually make it more likely. That's a calculation that he has to make.
Yeah, it isn't just a question, is it, of Scotland breaking away? Now, this may be something in the very distant future, but there are questions as well today about Northern Ireland, aren't there? Because nationalists there have won more seats in Parliament in Westminster than the pro-unionists, this for the first time ever. What do you think are the implications of that?
Well, it is an interesting vote in Northern Ireland, not a conclusive vote as we saw in Scotland. But as you say, the Democratic Unionist Party did not fare particularly well. It got about 30% of the vote. That translated into 8 seats. But if you add the seats together, opposition parties have more than they do. Sinn Féin came within a hair's breadth of matching the Democratic Unionist Party. Now, in terms of political opportunity and political power, it doesn't change an awful lot, because Sinn Féin will not take up its seats in Westminster because it refuses to accept the authority of the Queen, of the Crown. So, in practical terms, it doesn't change an awful lot. But what it does point to is the changing demographic now in Northern Ireland. The Catholic population is growing faster than the Protestant population. Many Protestants themselves are less hostile to the idea of union with the South now than they were in the past, not least, it has to be said, because of the European Union. The South, or the Republic of Ireland, of course, are part of the European Union. And for many who live and work in Northern Ireland, that makes it a much more attractive prospect than staying in the United Kingdom.
All right, Rob Parsons, thank you very much for your analysis on the potential fate of the Union, as well as digesting some of those results. Rob Parsons there from our Foreign Affairs desk.